The Blue Dahlia. The Blue Dahlia is a 1946 American crime film and film noir with an original screenplay by Raymond Chandler, directed by George Marshall and starring Alan Ladd, Veronica Lake, and William Bendix. It was Chandler's first original screenplay. Plot: three demobilized United States Navy aviators, Johnny Morrison, Buzz Wanchek, and George Copeland, arrive in Hollywood, California. All three flew together in the same flight crew from Kwajalein Atoll in the South Pacific. Buzz has shell shock and a metal plate in his head above his ear. While George and Buzz get an apartment together, Johnny surprises his wife, Helen, at her hotel bungalow where she is hosting a riotous party with many drunken revelers. Johnny discovers that Helen is having an affair with Eddie Harwood, the owner of the Blue Dahlia nightclub on the Sunset Strip. Johnny punches Eddie as he leaves and then apologizes for losing his temper. The party ends and everybody leaves. Helen, drunk, confesses to Johnny that their son, Dickie, who Johnny believed died of diphtheria, actually died in a car crash that happened because she was driving while drunk. Johnny and Helen scuffle, which is witnessed by the hotel detective, Dad Newell. Johnny decides to leave. He pulls a gun on Helen, states that's what you deserve, but drops the gun on a chair and leaves. Buzz goes out to find Johnny at his hotel bungalow. He meets Helen Morrison in the hotel bar and, unaware of her identity, goes to her bungalow for a drink to wait for Mrs. Morrison. Helen rings Eddie, who breaks up with her over the phone. However, she then blackmails him into seeing her again. Eddie visits Helen at her bungalow. This is witnessed by the hotel detective. Johnny is picked up by Joyce Harwood, who is driving to Malibu while walking in the rain. She is estranged from Eddie. Neither reveals their names. Although attracted to each other, they part ways and Johnny spends the night in a beachside inn. The next morning, at the same inn, Joyce sees Johnny at breakfast and reveals that she stayed at the same inn. They decide to walk on the beach to look for moonstones. Whilst purchasing a bus ticket for Los Angeles, Johnny hears the radio announce that Helen has been murdered and that Johnny is suspected. He then quickly leaves to board a bus. The police interview Newell, Harwood, Buzz, and George. After Johnny checks into a cheap hotel in Los Angeles under an assumed name, Coralie, the hotel manager, finds Johnny's framed photo of himself with Dickie and tries to blackmail him. Johnny punches Coralie out, smashing the frame in the process. He discovers on the back of the photo that Helen has written an insurance note revealing that Eddie is really Barr, a murderer who is wanted in New Jersey. Coralie revives and sells information on Johnny's identity to a gangster named Leo, the nightclub partner of Eddie, who then kidnaps Johnny when he visits George and Buzz. Buzz and George visit Eddie at the Blue Dahlia. Joyce, who has agreed to meet Eddie, introduces herself. As Joyce picks at a Blue Dahlia flower, the nightclub's music sets off a painful ring in Buzz's head. Lapsing into a fit, he remembers the agonizing music that he heard at Helen's bungalow as she played with a Blue Dahlia. Johnny escapes Leo and his sidekick, knocking them both out just before Eddie arrives. They talk and Eddie admits with regret that 15 years earlier he was involved in the shooting of a bank messenger. Leo comes around and tries to shoot Johnny, but during a scuffle, he shoots Eddie instead. Johnny ends up shooting Leo and flees to the Blue Dahlia, where the police are trying to force a confused Buzz to admit that he killed Helen. Johnny enters and suggests that Joyce turn up the jazz music that Buzz hates. As his head pounds, Buzz remembers leaving Helen alive in her bungalow. Newell tries to shift suspicion towards George, then attempts to leave as Police Captain Hendrickson confronts Newell with the accusation that he tried to blackmail Helen about her affair, and that he killed her when she refused to comply. Newell then tries to escape from the office but is shot dead by Hendrickson when he pulls his own gun. Later, outside the Blue Dahlia, Buzz and George decide to go for a drink, leaving Johnny and Joyce together. Cast. Uncredited performances include Mebush as Jenny the maid, Anthony Caruso as a corporal playing a jukebox, and Noel Neal as Noli the hatchet girl. Production. Development. In 1945, Alan Ladd was one of Paramount's top stars. He had served for 10 months in the Army in 1943 before being honorably discharged due to illness. However, he had recently been reclassified one for the military draft, and he might have had to go back into the Army. Paramount kept applying for deferments so he could make films, but Ladd was due for induction in May 1945. The studio wanted to make a movie starring him before that happened, but had nothing suitable. Producer John Houseman knew Raymond Chandler from having collaborated on Paramount's The Unseen, which Houseman produced and Chandler rewrote. Houseman says Chandler had started a novel, but was stuck and was considering turning it into a screenplay for the movies instead. Houseman read the 120 pages Chandler had written, and within 48 hours, it was sold to Paramount. Houseman would produce it under the supervision of Joseph Sistrom. It was the first original script for the screen that Chandler had ever written. He wrote the first half of the script in under 6 weeks and sent it to Paramount. Delighted, the studio arranged for filming to start in 3 weeks' time. Paramount announced the film in February 1945, with Ladd, Lake, Bendix, and Marshall all attached from the beginning. Houseman said George Marshall had a reputation for rewriting extensively on the set and had to persuade him to stick to the script. Marshall said he was so impressed with the writing he never had any intention of rewriting. Houseman recalled that Ladd was unhappy with the casting of Doris Dowling as his wife because she was half a foot taller than he, but this was disguised during their scenes together. Shooting. Reception. Box office. It was one of the most popular films at the British box office in 1946. Critical response. The staff at Variety magazine gave the film a positive review and wrote, "Playing a discharged naval flyer returning home from the Pacific first to find his wife unfaithful, then to find her murdered and himself in hiding as the suspect, Alan Ladd does a bang-up job. Performance has a warm appeal, while in his relentless track down of the real criminal, Ladd has a cold, steel-like quality that is potent. Fight scenes are stark and brutal and tremendously effective." Critic Dennis Schwartz wrote, "A fresh-smelling film noir directed with great skill by George Marshall from the screenplay of Raymond Chandler. It eschews moral judgment in favor of a hard-boiled tale that flaunts its flowery style as its way of swimming madly along in last post-war boom and decadence." Diabolique called it a fantastic film noir, full of atmosphere, intrigue, crackling dialogue, and sensational performances, which was recognized as a classic almost immediately and made a ton of money. The film review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reports that 100% of its critics gave the film a positive review based on 9 reviews. Awards and honors. Chandler was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Adaptations. The Blue Dahlia was dramatized as a half-hour radio play on the April 21, 1949 broadcast of the Screen Guild Theatre, starring Lake and Ladd in their original film roles. The movie was also adapted into a stage play in 1989. Houseman's narrative of the film's creation was dramatized for BBC Radio by Ray Connolly in 2009.